Hey, seventh grade. So our learning target for today is I can model expressions. You should be on page 3. All right, so we're going to talk about some important symbols in math. So really there are 4 major symbols. There's add, subtract, multiply, which have all these different variations, and division. So the words that you've learned in elementary school would be maybe the word plus, minus, multiply, and divide. Go ahead and write that line down. So those are some of the elementary words that we hear: plus, minus, multiply, divide. Other words that you might hear are the words add and subtract, multiply, divide. Okay, everybody's writing. So we're just writing down some words that we know for these symbols. Now, as we move to middle school, you should have started to hear words like sum, difference, and maybe you heard that as well in elementary school. Sum, difference, product, and quotient. Okay, I'll slow down so you have time to write those notes in. Sum, difference, product, and quotient. So we're talking about how do we model expressions today. So we're going to talk still parts of Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, but we won't be officially solving anything today, just kind of eliminating words, replacing with symbols. Other words that you maybe have heard to representing each of these would be the word like more than. Now, some kids get confused with that because they think of alligator mouth questions, but add can also mean more than, and then subtract can be also less than. Some product words or multiplication words would be the word square or power of 2. So for example, x squared. Some value squared is really a multiplication problem. And some division problems you might hear are like the word half. Okay, so some other words that we're going to talk about today is the word increase, could mean add. A decrease could mean subtract. Increase and decrease, subtract. And you might say things like double. What happens if we double something? What happens if we triple something? Those kind of words. And then the quotient word for that would be the word fraction. Half, fourth, eighth, fractions. All right, so we're going to start with those kind of as our major words. I'll go ahead and pause the video if you need to at this point. Otherwise, I'm going to continue to move on. So if it's going too fast, you can't get all those notes in, go ahead and pause the video. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to do first. What we're going to do now is we are going to translate words to math using symbols. Because in math, we don't like a bunch of words. We like symbols. So we're going to start with this first statement, which says the quotient of m and 7. So we have this quotient, which really means that we have a division problem kicking in here. We have a division of these two things. Quotient meaning division. Go ahead and look in the notes up on the top of the screen, which becomes m divided by 7. M divided by 7. That's what you should have written down. Many students would think of that as a fraction now once we get to 7th grade. M divided by 7. I'm hoping you're able to see the green and you're able to visualize that really is a division problem. But if you're only able to handle the red, that's fine as well. We're going to work left to right here. So we're going to go over to that 6 squared. Taking a look at 6 squared, if we go up to our notes, squared really means it's a multiplication problem. We have 2 of something when we square. So it becomes 6 squared. But we could go ahead and solve that and say that 6 squared is the same thing as 6 times 6, which is equal to 36. But our representation would be 6 to the power of 2, 6 squared. All right, let's move back down to that row 2 now here. So in row 2, we have the word decrease. If you look in the notes up above, decrease means to subtract. So we are taking u and we're decreasing or subtracting by 17. So we have our u value, subtract 17. U subtract 17. Everybody should have u, subtract 17. All right, guys, so we're going to keep moving here. Now we have the word sum. If you look at our notes above, sum means to add. What are we summing? We're summing n and we're summing 4. So it's the sum of n and 4, or n plus 4. The word sum means to add. All right, this next one's a little bit tricky. The word half. The word half can represent 2 different things. It can represent multiplication, but it also can represent division depending on how you're thinking of it. Some kids would say If I take half of 8, I would take 8 and I would divide by 2. That would be how they would represent half of 8. Take the value 8, cut it in half. 8 divide by 2, which is fabulous. Or you can start thinking of it as a multiplication representation as well. The word of in math means to multiply, so you could say that that is 1/2 of, this giant of or multiplication kicks in there, 1/2 of 8. You would get the same value either way. You can think of it as division or multiplication, the word half. All right, next word. A number tripled. That means we're taking 3 of some number. The tricky part in this problem is we don't know what the number is, so we have the variable n. We're going to triple it, so it means we're going to multiply it by 3, which becomes n times 3. Or in proper order, we want to put that coefficient or that number in front, becomes 3 times n. Okay, keep plugging through here. Next problem then, we have the word difference. We look at our notes above. Difference means to subtract. We've already tried one of those. Difference of m and 5. So we have the difference, which means we have m subtract 5. Difference of m and 5. M minus 5. All right, let's keep rolling. Next problem, we have the sum. Sum means to add. What are we summing? We're summing a number and 3. So we have a number plus 3. We tried that example up above. Hopefully you're able to help. It gets a little bit easier as we get through that second example. Okay, next term we see is the word product. Go ahead and look at notes above if you are not sure what product means. Back to elementary school, you should have heard the word product maybe 4th, 5th grade. Product means to multiply. What are we multiplying? These two. So we have x times 7, or you could have 7x. So x times 7 or 7x. Or 7x. Next problem is one of the trickiest problems on the page. It says 6 less than x. So we have this value of x, and we're going to take 6 away from it, or less than that. This is the hardest one because you have to think actually backwards of it. So we're going to say, what value are we going to take 6 away from? We're going to take 6 away from x. 6 less than x. This one I want you to put some giant stars around because that is the trickiest one on the page because we actually do not work that problem left to right because we're taking 6 away from x. All right, guys, next problem here. We have the word increased. In math, the word increase means to add. So we're going to increase. We would want to always increase our bank account, right? That's a good thing. We're adding to our bank account. So it's an addition sign. So we have x plus 6 or an increase of 6. All right, last problem over in this section. We have 5 groups of 25, which really turns into a multiplication problem. When we group something, it's through the operation of multiplication. It's really a fast way to add. So that becomes 5 multiplied by 25. Sorry about my pen here, guys. 5 multiplied by 25, or 5 groups of 25. There's multiplication represented in that problem. Okay, so we're switching our, we're gonna do the reverse order here. I'm gonna give you the expression, and you're gonna have to translate in words what the operation is. So we're gonna go ahead and say this first problem. The operation is multiplication. I have many choices of which word to use. Up top, we have the word multiply, product, square, double, triple. Which one would we want to use down in this statement? It's a multiplication problem, so I'm just going to say 5 multiplied by n. So I'm going to keep it nice and simple on that first example. 5 multiplied by n. Now you could have also said the product of 5 and n, because both of those words, multiply and product, represent the same thing. I'll give you time to write there. Problem on the right then, we have this division sign. So you have some choices up above of how we represent that. Divide, quotient, half, fraction. Those are all great words that you could use for division. So we have I'm going to use a fancy word this time. Here we go. Ready? The quotient. That means division. What are we taking the division of? We're taking the quotient of x and 2. The quotient of x and 2. Go ahead and look over here. The quotient of x and 2. All right, fabulous. This next problem, we're going to have the value of m, and I'm going to use the word decreased. Decreased by 3. Again, you had many choices up above of what to use for subtract. Subtract, less than, decrease, take away is kind of an elementary math word that you use. Difference. All right, so what goes on in this next problem? If we look above, you should have seen this problem up above under the multiplication section, which gives us q What are we doing to q? We are squaring it. Q squared. It's kind of one of the few options on that one. Q squared, or q to the power of 2. All right, guys, 2 left before we hit that summary. This problem right here has an addition sign. If we look above, you have many choices for addition: plus, sum, add, more than, increase. I'm going to go ahead and say A increased by 9. Now, you could have used the word sum. You could have used the word add. You have many choices up in that list above. All right, we're going to jazz up this last problem. If we're going too fast, go ahead and pause that video. If you have a sub today, you should ask the sub to pause the video so you can catch up, but you should do that very respectfully and politely. Ask the sub to pause the video. All right, 7th grade, let's finish this last problem. This last problem has 2 operations in it. It has a multiplication on the front end and it has an addition sign on the back end. So we're going to go ahead and start with that front end. I'm going to go ahead and use the word product. So I'm going to say the product of 3 and x. Let's start with that. The product of 3 and x. Then I'm going to go ahead and say plus. Let's just keep it a nice elementary math word there. Plus 5. Now you could have used the word increased. You could have used the word sum. I'm just going to keep it a nice easy math word there. So the product of 3 and x plus 5. Many options there though. All right, let's finish this lesson up, guys. So our summary for today, we have 3 giant summaries. First piece of the summary is each word has a meaning in math class. You don't just get to skip over words. Anytime you see a math sentence, you have to cross off each and every word and make sure you've represented it with a number or a symbol. Each word has a meaning in math class. Everybody should be writing a summary right now. Each word has a meaning in math class. All right. Next summary. Use what you know to translate words to math and vice versa. If you know that you just want to use something simple as add, that's fine. But we have to be able to go back to our cheat sheet and make sure that we've covered all of the symbols. Everybody should be writing that summary. You can go ahead and abbreviate if you need to. I know there's a lot of writing there. And we have one more thing for our summary today. The thing that you have to be most careful about really is subtraction and division, because in subtraction and division, the order matters. The order is actually super important with subtraction and addition, which is why the commutative property only works for addition and multiplication, because order is very important for subtraction and division. So please be careful on the subtraction and division problems within this set. All right, guys, so if you finished your summary, then your job would be to do homework for tonight. Page 4 and page 5 is what's due for tonight. If you need to go back and rewind, you missed some of the notes, please do that now. Otherwise, homework is page 4, 5. Have a fabulous night, 7th grade.